I'm here to discuss the so-called flying saucers.
The whole fleet of them, what the man say? My God. That's
Unidentified.
The acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Anomolous.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
Since 1947, we have received and analyzed between 1 and 2,000 reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things.
Podcast.
Stage. There we go. Look, we weren't there for a second. We're here now. Hello, everybody. And well, he's shaking his head at me in dismay. Sorry. Anyway, welcome to the Unidentified Anomalous podcast, and congratulations to everybody that survived the rapture from Tuesday.
God, I've survived 2 solar eclipses, Mayan Doomsday 2012, Y2K. I should get a shirt. I was thinking about this yesterday. Like, I should make a shirt that has like all of the apocalyptic predictions that I've lived through, and put it all on that shirt as a badge of honor. And as you guys can see, I don't have the green screen up today, so we're getting a look into the Matrix here. It's 77 degrees here, and I wasn't prepared for it to be so warm. And if I turn all these lights on and put up the green screen in this current state, I would have been sweating bullets in front of this computer, and I just refuse to be that uncomfortable while we're live. But by the next show, we should be good. What's up, Digby? How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Yes, my family come back tomorrow. Yes,
I know, that's very exciting. They've been gone for
on
almost
my
a
own
month.
any longer. Jesus Christ, there's only so much time one man can spend on his own without going insane.
Yeah, it starts to get a little like, you get stir crazy. Like you need in-person interaction.
Just looking forward to touching another human being, you know, nothing dodgy, just like hello.
At least until the
COVID.
kids go to bed.
It was a bit like COVID and Big Brother, sort of all rolled into one.
No.
But it's nearly over. It's nearly over.
I shaved my head, as you can see.
Well, as I can see by your hat. So you guys on the show have literally been my only contact with the outside world for about 3 weeks. So if I seem a bit twitchy, you know why. Hi, Paul. Paul's in the chat.
So it's not cocaine?
No, don't do that.
Okay.
No. I'm past that.
Sure. By past that, you mean you finished all you had, or no? I'm just kidding.
Weeks ago. Yeah, right.
You just didn't want to share it with the dog.
No, quite. Anyway, let's move away from Class A drugs and move on to
controlled
today's
substances.
Today's guest, who I'm sure does know Class A drugs, just like none of us. So thanks for that, Tom. She looks. I'm just going to put her in. There you go. So she's putting funny faces in the background. Look, that's a nice hat.
Hello. I'd look real hot in that hat if I wore that hat. Anybody that wears that hat is kind of like in fireball mode. Like they're not necessarily messing around here. They mean business.
Well, she said to me earlier, because we all wear hats on the show, and now I feel like I should be wearing a hat.
You're gonna put on a hat?
I had to go get a hat. Is my microphone working?
Yes, it is.
The microphone is working. You look absolutely lovely, and we are so happy to have you here on the show. You're one of my favorite people in the UFO community. We've been in spaces together many, many times. So thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us today and have a little chit chat. How are you?
Yeah, very welcome. I'm okay. I'm a bit sniffy. It's freezing cold. I've just put my heater on because I'm in England and it's cold here.
We were talking about that and how it's the absolute opposite over here. This is why I didn't put up my green screen. It was just going to get way too hot in here. We have another air conditioner that we install seasonally. Like we put it in the window, and then once it cools off, we take it out. It's time to put it in the window. It's just not there right now. What's up, Nicotina? I see you in the chat too, man. Another great podcaster out here in Podcastville, USA / Europe / the Earth. God, what an interesting week and day. We had the solar eclipse yesterday. It was beautiful. I was actually able to observe it with my naked eye.
Naked eye.
Well, nothing
Yeah, well,
happened.
right. Well, of
No,
course.
what
like,
a disappointment. We're all still here.
there was
Nothing blew
there was
up.
enough cloud cover.
Sun's
Like, so
still
it was just
there.
like 2017. In 2017, there was a layer of clouds that was moving over it, and then you would see it. Like, I was able to get like the whole show yesterday. Obviously, I wasn't in the path of totality, but we had 92%, which is pretty good. It got pretty dark outside, and we're all like, I was at work, and we all stepped outside. We're taking pictures of it. Just a really cool moment, and I guess this is probably a good way to start off the conversation. Actually, I didn't think of it, but the math behind a solar eclipse is boggling. So you have this tiny little moon, right? And it's yay far from Earth, okay? But millions of miles down the road, you have an object that is hundreds of thousands of times larger than both of them put together in the sun. But they're at just the right distance that not only can you have a total solar eclipse, but there's an intelligent civilization down here on Earth that not only can they observe it, but they can appreciate it, and they can take into consideration just how mind-boggling that is. Like,
semi-intelligent.
It's
I mean, I saw CNN covering it. I'm not saying intelligent was a good word. They were on top of a building with a disco ball. Yeah.
What? Did they really do that?
No, but there is a principle to this. And I don't know if you've ever watched my friend Ashton Forbes, who does this amazing thing about glitter. Where glitter is used in a lot of this sort of, quantum physics type thing. It sounds odd, but it is. It's not to do with dancing. It's not to do with discos. But the guy on CNN, what he was doing is, in order to watch it, he was doing a reflection off the ball onto a white wall. So you bounce off the shadow and you can see the eclipse as a
whole projector
off it. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a safe way to reduce the light. Yeah, if you don't have the glasses, it's a good way to actually like see it. Like, I didn't have, the glasses were all sold out and whatnot, but it was beautiful though. Obviously, neither of you were in the right area on Earth to catch it, but you'll be happy to know that we don't get another one of those over here in New Jersey until I think 2079. So.
But you had an earthquake 2 days before, didn't you?
We did. We had. Yeah, I felt it. I very much felt it. I felt that one and the other one. There were more than one.
And then yesterday in the UK, there was flood warnings everywhere in the UK for extremely high tides. I was reading as well.
Was there?
Yeah,
I live near Tewkesbury, which becomes an island, and I didn't hear that. But
no,
sorry,
I saw it was there was warnings on the government website. My wife, because my wife's over in the UK at the moment visiting her sister. She was so it was all on Facebook.
Fringe is here in the chat too. It feels like a whole Twitter party.
Facebook. Well, it would be because Moneypenny's here. Anyway, we all survived the apocalypse of yesterday, or have we just moved into the afterlife and we don't really know about it? If so,
or was it an omen?
Who knows?
There are some very interesting things about eclipses generally, whether they be solar or lunar. And obviously a lot of it is as a mystique. There's an element of mythical tales. And some of them, I always go to the Chinese, and I went to Chinese websites to have a look at their views on solar eclipses because, well, for two reasons. I have to admit, the three-body problem really got me off on another journey of investigation. And I'm one of these people, if I get a little tidbit of something, I've got to go off and find truth on it. So there's one reason that in three-body problem, when they're talking about the planets coming together, and obviously they had a tri-Solaris group, which is, three suns. And the problem being is when the planets come together, it's reducing effectively what our gravity on Earth would be. And they're doing it through a game in this actual program. But I was in a space on X about an hour before the eclipse, and I said to the people, weigh yourself before the eclipse and weigh yourself during it and weigh yourself afterwards. And because gravity is going to reduce, you're going to be less weight, just to see how many Americans would fall for it, quite honestly. But
how many did?
In three-body problem, that's what they do is, as the moon gets too close to the sun or any planets come together too close, it reduces the gravitational force. So that's what I was looking at. But in China, they talk about devils and beasts and things that come to play when those eclipses go on. I didn't see any devils or beasts, but I did feel sorry for all those running special spaces for 8 hours trying to talk and fill gaps about nothing.
There were quite a few UFO sightings that were posted online. Yeah, so like so I have two general thoughts about that. A, obviously you have a lot more people looking up at the same time. So naturally, if they're up there, you're going to see it. But then I thought to myself too, I'm like, well, is it possible that the NHI are observing us, making the observation like, oh, look at them down there, you know, taking that eclipse into account? So like, I think it could be a combination of both, but definitely more people looking up. There were a few clips that I honestly think were pretty good. They were really interesting. Digby, I know you saw a couple of them. You know,
I did.
Don't know what they were, and that's why they're unidentified. But nonetheless, I expected that because I knew how many people were going to be looking up. I mean, there were millions of people along that path of totality. They filled the Indianapolis Speedway was filled with fans. There was a
That
really
was awesome. I saw that.
Did you see the newscaster? He got like emotional. Yeah, I thought that was nice to see. Actually,
oh yes, no,
it's
I
like
saw that. You sent that one to me.
It's a very powerful, astronomical moment. You know, like when the one happened in 2017, I was very struck by it, and I wasn't even, it wasn't even a total eclipse for me, and still, I was just like, wow, that's really beautiful.
I can't even remember the last time I saw one.
Is fascinating. Sorry, Digby, I'm talking over you. To say one of them went live from a zoo to see the reaction on animals, because animals are not told, beforehand that this thing is going to happen. And also they did a field of sunflowers where the sunflowers close and then they reopen again.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I know, it is amazing. But yeah, there's a lot of birds that got quite distressed. Because you would do if you're suddenly plunged into darkness at the wrong time. It's not bedtime yet. But yeah, animals I think are fascinating to look at how they react to natural phenomenon, even when there's an earthquake and they know before and they leave. Even my dog's being ready at the door for me if I'm coming back. How do they know I am 10 minutes away? How do they know that?
They have a sense for things, right? My dog, before the earthquake, apparently he got up, I was at work. My mom said he got up off the couch. And he was like kind of walking around in circles and just kind of acting like he was about to ask to go outside, but he didn't. And then, and that has to do with the fact that it's a very low frequency and dogs have a completely different range of hearing than people. But like, I find animals' reactions to different things really beautiful. There's a video I saw randomly the other day of a man in an aquarium who was wheelchair bound. I think he was like an injured veteran because there was something written on the back of his chair. I don't know if it was Wounded Warriors or something of that nature, but he was playing violin, and the beluga whale comes up to the glass and is watching him. But like you could see almost like these little facial expressions, like with the eyes and like the lips of curiousness, and it was doing all these movements. And when he stopped, it did like a twirl and then swam away. And I was just like, yeah. That makes me, that is like when I see stuff like that, that reminds me of how fascinating and beautiful it is to just be alive, truthfully. Like it reminds you how precious and special everything is. And that, this is why we're so interested in non-human intelligence as a group, I think, is because we already have that kind of interaction with animals. So I think it's like, it's in us, right? It's like in our DNA.
So, Moneypenny, talking about UFOs, what brings obviously incredibly intelligent woman such as yourself, ex-BBC journalist,
pour it on,
all this stuff that you've done, which is completely amazing, by the way. What brings you to UFO Twitter?
Nobody else would have me.
What sparked your interest?
The science of it. And to some extent, I have to give Ashton Forbes some credit for that, although I think I was dabbling in the groups before his arrival. But I a long time ago, I'd been on Clubhouse for 2 or 3 years, talking in lots of different rooms, and I was known as the COVID encyclopedia because my fascination was in biocellular science and physics, which I'd studied a lot, academically. And obviously I was big into the virology, the epidemiology, and I was also looking, obviously, because there's a huge amount of conspiracy theories going on through the last few years of that. So I started to look more at link-ups with technology. And then this devastating thing happened, is that I discovered the corruption of the United States, which I'd sort of known a little bit about, but way, way far away from what was really going on. So I'd always looked at the intelligence agencies and sort of thought there was, 20% corruption, and realized there was probably a lot more. So when I saw the UFO Twitter or UAP Twitter, and I saw people talking, and they weren't all talking about what I had sort of, from an outside perspective, thought it probably would be, which would be little green men and wild experiences and whatever. And I did realize there was a hell of a lot of really good academic cognitive discussion that was quite scientific. And I had grabbed Ross Coulthard's book in plain sight, and I'd heard him on the radio, and he was also a former journalist, albeit Australian, and they don't normally have much intellect there. Oops. But he did seem as though he knew what he was talking about. And I did start to inquire in my head about reverse engineering in a scientific way of alien technology, because I'd then watched some Stephen Greer, some Fifth Dimension stuff, the various people that I'd caught on YouTube documentaries, because when you're locked down for 3 years, there ain't much to do except watch documentaries and television. And I just got fascinated more into the scientific side of non-human interfaces, but in particular, the propulsion technology of alien vessels. That's what fascinated me. I'm a real speed freak. I used to ride when I wasn't ill, motorbikes far too fast. I did my motor racing license. I raced cars. I'm quite a Boise girl, as they call it, a bit of a lad, as they say in the UK.
You look like one in that hat, clearly.
A Tom girl, as they're called over here.
And I just went into the UFO groups, found some really clever people talking more technology and physics and quantum science. And I just thought, yeah, I like these guys. They're good. That's it. You haven't got rid of me since.
After you found those intelligent people, you found me.
Oh, Digby, you're beautiful because you had an English accent. And oh my God, is it, survival being English on Twitter Spaces, anything after 10 p.m. British time.
I know, I'm just the English totty. It's fine.
Yeah, it was nice.
How are things back in Blighty anyway? Oh, hang on. My mother's trying to call me during a live stream.
Is that your mom? Also, note to the viewers, Moneypenny may offend you. Be aware that she doesn't care.
It's called sarcasm. It's a British thing. God, Digby, will somebody explain? It's called humor.
Absolutely. Sorry,
thank you. That's the point. You nailed it. That's the point. I feel like on the internet, like you see it in spaces sometimes, you see it on Twitter sometimes, that people get a little worked up over jokes, right? Because you're reading text, you don't hear the person saying it. You got to have that. You have to have that.
Tom didn't realize. Tom didn't realize before the show that this episode was going out live, and I think he was like,
I thought we were pre-recording,
right.
Yeah.
No chance to edit anything out. Let's have it. Come on. Let's touch
very much
all
lost in translation. Have you got in trouble, Digby? Digby, have you offended Americans?
All the time.
I got in trouble once on YouTube.
Exactly.
For a video. I put a video out in the midst of the COVID situation that at the time YouTube didn't like, and they removed it like that. And I was like, oh, okay. Gotcha.
I think we should replace the word COVID with something else today so we can talk about
did
as much
that
as we
too.
want.
No, I was banned from every social media channel. I'm on my 4th account on some of the social media platforms. So much so because I, talked about things you're not allowed to talk about. Yeah.
But from now on, for the rest of the show, COVID will be referred to as turnip, and then we can talk about turnip as much as we like.
I was very irritated by turnip. I
had a very long turnip. A very, very long turnip.
I had it a few months ago. It sucked.
You did.
No, I've had turnip for 4 years. Why do I have to call it turnip?
I
No.
don't know. It's quite funny. you and your long turnip.
I've
yeah,
had
I guess
done it for 4 years.
I'll bring this into the
where
equation
is that?
because we were talking about this before the show. Being that you have a background in journalism and such, and now that I'm very much in that sphere, and so was Digby, I want to get your thoughts on the difficulty of being someone like, say, a Ross Coulthart, who has sources giving them information that they're very, very confident in. Like behind the scenes, they've crossed their T's, dotted their I's, but they can only say so much about it. And then when they do that, there is that backlash of, oh, you're gatekeeping, or it's a trust me, bro statement, or oh, you're holding back, just tell us, spill the beans. Like, I wanted to hear what you have to say about that type of thing.
Well, you talk off the record a lot to sources. You have to earn their trust. So there are different ways of talking off the record, and you can never guarantee until you build a relationship with somebody that they're going to honor it. But it's not a big world when you're in journalism. So if a journalist breaks an embargo, so let's say you get a press release in and it says strict embargo 3 p.m. And if you put it out at 2:30, you'll never get another story. Nobody will trust you. So people do trust the off the record thing. So you have off the record, which is totally off the record between the source and the journalist. But at a future stage, the journalist could then return to the source and say, we talked about this off the record a while back. Can we now look at maybe using this part of it? Mm-hmm. You have non-attributable, which means that if, let's say if somebody from the DOJ said to me, Goldman Sachs caused the whole of the Malaysian MH370 problem, but it's off the record, they say it to me, and they have to stay off the record before they tell me. They could do it on a non-attributable basis, which means I could print it as a source from the DOJ has confirmed, but I couldn't name the person, non-attributable. So I can use the company or the organization, but not their actual name. And then there is obviously on the record, which the journalist always assumes everybody's on the record until the good, helpful PR or the person who has been hopefully media trained says, between you and me, I have to give you this background, but it's off the record. And you have to respect that. So you always, as a journalist, should know 2/3 more than the third you actually are printing. You saw with the brilliant film about, the Watergate and everything. I mean, that gave them pretty good insight into it. They knew so much more, and they know so much more so far in advance of printing something.
That's right.
Yeah. But then there's also this thing that's happened during the turnip years, where there are certain legal requests that can be made because it is endangering national security. But in the eyes of who? And I hate censorship, and I could do a whole bloody show on it. But the censorship, and for me, particularly the US having such commercial intrinsic hold on everything that the media puts out, makes a mockery of journalism, makes an absolute mockery of it. I think, citizen journalists, us, have much more influence, power, and trust with a lot of people now than the actual media itself. I really do.
Certainly now, especially, I mean, I think people are coming to Twitter or X in their droves at the moment. In fact, I think Twitter's user rates have skyrocketed in the last year to higher than they've ever been, because people are turning around and they're not trusting what they see on the BBC because they're all a bunch of weirdos, and Sky News, all this lot. I've got connections with people that work at various different news agencies. Some of them are going under. Two relatively new British news channels are going bust because they're not being allowed to talk about the things they want to talk about, and if they do carry on, they're going to get done by Ofcom, which is the regulatory sector of British media. There's new regulations going in with YouTube, laws that are going to be passed, which will mean that if you say anything that they don't like you saying, you'll be able to be fined or arrested for what you've said or done on YouTube, which is just insanity.
That's incredibly bad.
We cannot hide from the fact that governments all around the world are trying to censor us and stop us, dead in our tracks with free speech, and they are literally control the narrative. We're all looking at what's going on in Brazil at the moment and what they're doing with, certain key public figures, and they're trying to have their X accounts suspended and stuff like that. And we're all looking at Brazil going, oh God, it's awful over there. Or God, look what happens in Russia. Look what happens to them. It's like the same stuff happens here. It's just most people aren't awake enough to realize that it's going on. And it's really, really worrying. I got into UFO Twitter because I've been interested in UFOs, UAP my entire life. I deviated away from the subject while, I got married and had kids and all that sort of stuff. And I'll come back to it. But you start realizing that a lot of these conspiracy theories do actually link up. And you go down the rabbit hole of one and you realize, well, actually, they're all interconnected because it's the same bunch of lying bastards that are lying to us about UFOs and UAPs, the same bunch of bastards that are lying to us about the reasons for COVID and so many more things, new world orders, the World Economic Forum, World Health Organization. You cannot tell me that all the lies that we are being told are not part of the same big plan. It's
you don't need to convince me. It's a huge part of my life, and most of my journalist contacts, even from a few years ago, those that were at the BBC, they're not. They've all left. They've all become independent freelance or whatever. And most people that work for the BBC have to go freelance because the BBC don't pay anything. Not much.
That's ridiculous.
But it is intrinsically part of everything you do. But there is a certain amount of paranoia as well, and it's very difficult not to get sucked in. And really, even today, I was setting up all my technology and lots of things started going wrong, and I was thinking, well, this is not normally what amount of things go wrong. And I saw your broadcast that you did a couple of days ago with the pilot. That was brilliant. And there were a couple of times during the broadcast, and I think Tom had some technical issue. Oh no, it was something to do with earbuds, and suddenly we lost Digby's. And it was kind of mysterious because it was just at the time when the French pilot was just spilling the beans about something really, quite controversial, and suddenly all the technology went down. I live next to GCHQ in the UK, which, well, you can explain what it is, Digby. Where do I live? GCHQ.
GCHQ is the sort of special services part of the British government. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm Moneypenny. No, I was named Moneypenny for working in financial services, but I live next to the government's communication headquarters, and the head of all technology, cybercrime, everything is controlled from about a mile down the road from where I live. So the MI5, MI6, there's loads of Air Force bases around. I'm from a military family originally anyway, but there's no point them sticking loads of speakers in my house. They could probably just pop through the back door and look, it's that close. So, I do worry, and I had lots of issues. They call it doxing, and I didn't even know that word, but I have had a lot of serious, very unpleasant things happen in the last 2 or 3 years as a result of
I was going to ask
people
you
that didn't get on with me, people that felt threatened, or I don't know, but yeah.
Have you ever experienced any pushback from what you would describe as a government department or anything like that? Have you ever felt anything like that? I only ask because a person that I'm very, very close to, who I'm not going to name on the show, they were investigating things with vaccines in the past and adverse effects that it had on their children and things like this, and they were deep diving into it, and they got threats made to them. They had helicopters going over their house, their phones were being bugged and proved to be bugged, all this sort of stuff. So many threats. You're going down a pretty much similar route as said person with your investigations, and I was wondering, do you feel like you are getting any pushback?
I've had loads, but then there's the difficulty of working out what is purposeful and deliberate and individual, and what is maybe more coincidental or being done on a group basis. As I said, it's difficult to become paranoid. But in the first couple of years of COVID, I have to say, because turnip's a bit silly.
Yeah, it's fine.
In the first couple of years of COVID, I was on the BBC I was on 3 or 4 national radio stations every week. I was on different television channels. I was representing everybody that was either having an illness that they believed was COVID, that they had been told couldn't possibly be COVID because it wasn't around that early, and everybody that had long COVID, which at the time didn't exist. Everybody who was suffering with something or finding things that they were not allowed to talk about seemed to come to me, because I was on all these talk shows at the time, mainly with American scientists and a couple of scientists from other countries. I was funny because when I was brought on, because my name's Nick, N-I-C, Nick Moneypenny, they all thought I was a bloke because my voice is quite deep now, but it was a lot deeper because it really damaged my throat when I first had it. So they was like, oh, and the Professor Nick from England, he's very good, isn't he? I'm a woman. No, so I got effectively banned from doing those shows when it got to the stage of mid-21 and the vaccines came out. And I just had to be cautious about not answering questions because I knew the minute I did. But what happened is the BBC one day asked me to come and do this show, and they gave me the information from the scientific advisors to the British government, which was called Sage Data, which was reporting all these wonderful things about how stuff was working really well. And I just refused to do it. I refused to give this information out because although the BBC had given me this saying it was independent data, I knew it wasn't correct and I refused it. And so I got stopped. I wasn't allowed to go back on again until about, I don't know, 6 months ago. And I don't do anything to do with COVID at the moment because I'm still not allowed to. There's only one channel, as you know, GB News, that will allow you to even speak about the fact there might be dangers from something associated with it. It's that
GB. Well, is GB News about to go as well? GB News, Talk TV?
I don't know, because you know the Reform Party in our political system, which was set up by Andrew. I'm useless on names, even with my COVID brain. Andrew Bridgen, who's our member of Parliament, who broke up the subject of potentially malicious genocidal gene therapies. He is part of a big political party which is doing really well because we're probably facing an election very shortly, and people are en masse very concerned about the huge amount of, on the record now, non-COVID excess deaths, and people are dying very quickly of stuff. So the political party is doing well, and as a result, people are speaking more openly about things. And yeah, I don't know how much it's going to work out, but it has allowed a bit of freedom.
Well, Nick, the person that I've spoken to you about in the past that we have in common, they're running for that political party, have been asked to run for that political party. So she's weighing up that at the moment. And she also works for one of the aforementioned TV channels currently.
Yeah.
And that political party seems to be playing an awful lot of a big role in it. Also, things like Piers Morgan and stuff like that are being complained to Ofcom far too often, so they literally can't have them on the air, so they're moving them over to a YouTube channel and closing down these news channels because the government are trying to step in and regulate what everybody can and can't say, which is just absolutely ridiculous for a country like the UK or America, who we look at people like North Korea and see how they've been censored, and we've seen it our entire lives, and think that could never happen to us. And I tell you what, it is happening to all of us. It's happening to all of us.
It is. There's that Dr. John Campbell who does a great YouTube channel. Sorry, Dr. John Campbell, he does this YouTube channel. He's a British guy. He's done every single day of the last 3 or 4 years, all the way through, done a quite scientific medical report on whatever news is coming out. And he does it totally independently. And obviously it got to about mid-July and he was still saying, like, make sure you go and get that jab thing and make sure you do this and do that. And then there was a click. And then people that had been writing into him and saying, no, you've got to look at this. Suddenly he went, whoa. And now he is a huge, great big campaigner in the same way as Andrew Bridgen, the Reform Party, for the same sort of reasons that I mentioned. So there are a lot of people like that, a lot of doctors that have lost their jobs, huge amount of medical people, scientists that have, there's horrible stories of, horrible people that have been probably, chosen by the government and targeted. Yeah.
You're absolutely right about that. I've always been a proponent of free speech while still recognizing that it does come with a level of responsibility. And I've thought about the massive censorship that's been going on for the last few years. Obviously, there's been quite an uptick in that, especially here in the United States and obviously in the UK as well. And I have tried to approach it from a very unbiased perspective to the best of my ability. And I thought to myself, well, on one hand, they very well could be hiding. This is like your basic conspiracy enthusiast viewpoint where it's like, well, they're censoring things because they're hiding something, they're guilty of something, right, etc. And then I thought, even if they were doing everything that they've been doing with the best intentions, you're creating fear and distrust through that censorship. Like if your goal is to actually gain the support of the populace, that's not how you do it. You don't start squashing people's viewpoints and such. Like, I had never seen anything like that before in my entire life. If I go to a doctor and get, a cancer diagnosis, my next move is to go to 2 more because I want to get multiple opinions. So when this was all going on, I was scared. I'm like, and I couldn't believe how many people around me were just blindly going along with everything without asking any basic, simple questions. And I'm just like, look, I wasn't even, propagating anything significant. I didn't say, oh, it's a bioweapon that was made by the Illuminati, right? Like it was nothing like that.
Yeah.
I said, I'm afraid of the situation that's going on right now because I don't know what's going on. All I know is people are getting sick, and I don't want my family to suffer or get hurt. I don't want my parents to die. They're in their 60s. So when they went and got the vaccinations, then you go on the internet and you see all these stories about people having negative side effects and such, and it's like I'm just asking questions because I care about my family and I'm afraid. That's it. That's all it really came down to. It was a fear reaction.
And we became a forced dichotomous civilization. You are either one camp or the other. So much so that, and it sounds amusing now, but on dating sites, people had a new criteria of were you jabbed or not.
I saw
because when people realized there was this shedding, that by sleeping with somebody or even being in close quarters with somebody, or even if you were not vaxxed and you went to a hospital and saw a nurse or a doctor who was vaxxed, the next day you would feel dreadful. People started to realize that there was 2 parts of society that were or weren't, and that you might have to spend however long, people didn't know or understand it, apart from a whole part of society and potentially from your own parents. Or from your own family. And it wasn't just a case of, being told to stay indoors because there was something deadly that was going to kill you if you left your house. It was a case of, well, depending on, whether you've been tainted or not tainted and whether I'm allowed to give blood, I'm allowed to give blood. What happens if I have an accident? They're going to give me tainted blood. And suddenly it became a whole great big trauma. And what you said, particularly, Tom, that happened to me. So they didn't know what was wrong with me. I got my dose of it in December 2019. My symptoms actually arrived on Christmas Day. And my first symptom was not being able to taste or smell. But I was diagnosed with myeloma, which is a cancer that has absolutely, no cure, shortly after I got back. But I knew it wasn't. Well, I didn't know it wasn't. I was pretty sure. And so I got out all my biology books and spoke to a load of scientists. And one of the reasons I was on all these channels talking about it is because I'll say I was the first in the UK, but I'm sure a lot of people made the connection between COVID and cancer. And so I explained in very technical terms on a lot of shows the correlation between the two in a very deep virological way, about how it happened, why it happened. And I was the case study. And then I got brought into Oxford University and became a guinea pig, where they did loads and loads of studies and, scanned my organs and did all this stuff. And hopefully it helped a hell of a lot of people, because through what I discovered, a hell of a lot of people who were going through the same thing that I had and been wrongly told they had this, that, and the other, Ended up finding out they didn't. But obviously there were a lot of other people during that period who did have something really serious that didn't get to find out properly for other reasons. Anyway,
the whole point, that whole stage in our history is just an absolute shit show for various different reasons. The way that it was delivered to the people, the lies that were being told to us, the every step of the way, every single step of the way we've been lied to about this. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know the answers. I don't have all the information. There are better people out there who've done an awful lot more research than me. I'm not going to be the ignorant person that goes, I believe this, and not have it based on any actual scientific fact. I know what I believe to be the case, but I'm not going to sit here and spout that because it's not my place to. But, I feel bad for everybody in the human race that had to go through this. I also feel bad for doctors and nurses that had to instigate all of this, all the hard work. And, in England, we did this pathetic thing when was it Thursday night or Tuesday night? Everybody went out and clapped for the nurses. Oh, everybody went outside their houses.
That funny thing, though.
When the politicians offer a pay rise and we said, well, let's just give them a clap.
Yeah, and you know what really gets me too is that over here in the United States, they were running these commercials, hashtag heroes and all that, and then all of a sudden, some of these hospitals and doctors' offices rolled out those mandates, and those same people that they were calling heroes, that for their own personal, religious, whatever the reason may have been, is irrelevant. They said, "Hey, I'm not comfortable getting this injection yet," right? They're like, "Well, you're fired." It's like it's like there was this back and forth going on. One of the biggest things, I hate talking about COVID. I'll just say that this is like the only place I'll talk about it.
Subject, we'll be here for hours.
The mental. Well, we can segue. The mental health effects were startling. I mean, it was an abomination. I had never seen anything like that in my life. Right, like how many people were suffering from being locked down and such. So, like for me personally, there was no lockdown. I was working. I continued to work. There was no period where they laid us off or anything of that nature. It was now you're going to work and wearing gloves and a mask. Whatever. I put up with it. I did the social distancing, washed my hands, whatever. I did that also out of respect to other people that were frightened, because I don't want to walk around and scare anybody. That's really, you know what I mean? It's like I had my own things that I was afraid of, and they were afraid of other things for their own reasons. And I'm like, you know what? I just want to make my money and go home. That's it. Just trying to pay my bills. Now, this is something that doesn't get talked about enough. It comes up every now and then, and you see it in our community with UFOs and related subjects, that there is a lot of mental health difficulties. There's a lot of hurdles and challenges for people like experiencers and such. I wish there would be more funding. Right. I love that you said it that way. That's absolutely true.
There is a mental health pandemic. It's not being addressed. It has nowhere near enough resources or observation or realization. And there are a hell of a lot of lives being demolished by it. In my community of long COVIDs, in the first year, 12% of people were lost through taking their own lives. Nobody.
How long have you felt ill, or at least off? I don't mean to interrupt, but you said you've had
3.5 years.
You have not felt yourself for 3.5 years.
I haven't been able to walk my dogs. I haven't been able to walk more than 50, 100 yards without being seriously out of breath, or my feet, my ankles being in so much pain. The Oxford University studies, I've got multiple organ damage. So I'm on a lot of drugs to keep my heart and my kidneys and my liver going.
Oh my God.
I wear a DNR bracelet because I don't want to be resuscitated again. I had near-death experiences, which I've got on my YouTube channel, which were pretty horrific. And I've been on my own. I've not seen another adult for 2.5 of those years. I didn't see anybody. And then my own doctor tried to section me after I made that cancer. I turned over her diagnosis and told her it wasn't, and I explained why. She tried to get me sectioned. So the first people I saw was a load of mental health doctors. This is when you talk about, was I shunned by the government? Long story. But anyway, when I got COVID, I was on an airplane followed by Boris Johnson. and Boris Johnson was in the Caribbean, which is where I got my COVID, on the plane in pretty much the same seat where I was sitting straight afterwards. So I had contact with the government, and obviously I was one of the first people ever to get it. And when the mental health team turned up and tried to section me, I can believe you, I can't tell you all of it, but yeah, it was, I don't know how much I was targeted, but it was difficult to carry on, very difficult, a lot of the time.
Oh my God, I had no idea. Like, I've talked to you, you know, many, many times. I'm so
we all
sorry
have
that you've gone
backgrounds,
through
don't
all
we?
this.
Yeah,
no
so
kidding.
my
But I
life
mean,
was changed. I lost everything. I was running a business that was successful. I lost my business. I lost my house. I sold all my jewelry, my father's wedding ring. I was on a food bank survival. I lost all my friends. The 2 members of my family that are alive, both absconded, left me. And I was, I was just living hand to mouth. I still am. I'm not so bad. I've done lots of things that have helped now because I've got fitter. So I'm running as an Airbnb just to get some money in. Well, the house sale is going through. So I'm washing sheets a lot. Yeah.
I hope that knowing all of
But that's
that,
why I went on
I hope these
social audio.
spaces and podcasts help you. I hope
That's
that
the only reason. I had no other way of contacting people. I had no friends. I had no family. I had nothing. I was really ill. I really thought my life was over. I thought I was going to die anyway because I kept going so seriously ill. And I'd written a will. I'd done my do not resuscitate. I'd given up. I'd completely given up at some points, and I had nobody to talk to. And I logged on to the internet and found initially Stereo and then Clubhouse. And that was my life. And that's why even now I live on American time, because it's all that I have in a lot of ways. I don't really, other than my 2 dogs who have to go to vets and things, there's no reason for me to live on a particular timeline. So my whole social life, my friends, my education, my excitement, my investigation, 90% of it was all online. It's about 70% now.
oh my
It's
God.
everything.
I'm almost speechless. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I'm almost like I can
Yeah,
feel my
well,
eyes beginning to jerk, to be a little
well,
humorous. I'm like fighting it back. I hope deeply, genuinely that Digby, myself, Fringe, Paul, Sandy, that these people that you know, that you see in spaces that are here, I hope you know that we are your friends, and we will always be
Too
your
right.
friends, even from a distance. It doesn't matter. You can
I
DM
trust
me
you guys a
anytime
lot
of
more
any
than
time of the
some
day.
people.
We are your friends. I think you're a wonderful, beautiful person. You're sharp as a knife. You're super intelligent, and I just wanted to say, you know, if you need anything, Digby and I will always be there. Always be there. I don't care what time it is. You can call me.
Nice cheap holiday
Seriously.
to Morocco. Sun will do you some good. Flights are about
Paying for that,
£15 at
Digby?
the moment.
That's right.
Flights are like 15 quid. It's fine.
That's
Takes
not
you
bad
right
at
away.
all. 15 quid, that's it?
Yeah, God, it's so funny hearing Americans say quid.
Well, it's from dealing with you know, Nunt's case and blokes and all the rest of it. I know all about it.
Blokes.
Blokes.
All right,
He doesn't
Nicky,
think I
that-
do a good
Two
accent,
things come
though.
out of it. I started doing stand-up comedy because when I wrote a bucket list when I was convinced I was not going to make it through. I wrote a bucket list. I'm always writing lists, and one of it was to teach myself how to do lip syncing on TikTok, because I thought we can't get to my age and not be able to lip sync. So I went on
Of course.
TikTok and did these courses on lip syncing, and then I realized I could do comedy because I'm pretty good at taking the piss out of people and myself. And so I just did a smashing amount of stupid comedy stuff and realized people thought I was funny. And honestly, the funniness, being able to make people laugh and realizing that I could be funny, honestly, that probably got me through it, because I just honestly found it amazing that I had something left to give people, that I'd done all my financial running the world and running companies and I had nothing. I thought I had nothing. And then I made people laugh through TikTok and shit like that. And I just thought, oh my God, I'm funny. I can do it. Really?
I am so
Seriously?
impressed by that to hear that you're. It reminds me of my mom because my mom
That's what everyone wants to
is
hear.
doing. My mom just started a company yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's making Digby. You saw some of it. She's making like bracelets and different types of
Yeah,
jewelry,
people
and
have
she's
totally
beading.
changed. Yeah. How
She's
old is your
doing.
mom? Oh no, I shouldn't ask how old
No,
she
no,
is.
no, no. She's okay with it. She's 64.
Go girl.
My mom is the greatest person in the world. I love my
Aw.
mom so much. That's why I love seeing people that have lived their life and then they start doing things that they
Yeah,
haven't done before. Like some people, like I'm a musician. Whenever I hear someone that's much older than me want to like pick up an instrument, I'm like, you have no idea just how happy you will be. Even if you get just a little bit of progress with that, whether it's stand-up comedy, you learn the piano, anything of that nature. Like it's so good for you to do that and it helps you get through things.
I'm a
Oh,
flautist.
really?
I
I don't have my lungs don't have the capacity
I
for
used
it.
to play flute. I used to
Did
play
you?
flute, and yes,
James
I did.
Galway. We
Yes,
could
I
do a
used to play flute
duet.
a long time ago. I'm talking like when I was
I'm all
know,
strings.
13. I was 13 when I played the flute, so that was almost 30 years ago.
This is one of
I can
my
play the guitar a bit and a
I
bit
can't
of
play
the piano.
guitar,
And obviously
but I went
recorder.
from flute to saxophone because the fingering's the same.
this pick.
Yes,
You know who
yes,
this
the
this
fingering.
guitar pick
Did you
is
say sax?
from?
Yeah,
You play saxophone?
Yeah,
Sax
My dad's
and
best friend
flute
is a
the
killer
same,
saxophone
it's the same,
player.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's the
This
same
is
key.
this is
Almost,
actually
almost, yeah.
from someone on Twitter. This is you guys know Justin Other Sun Junkie?
Yeah.
They made that triangle. I'm gonna try right there by my thumb. They made my YouTube logo. They made a Penrose triangle. They like 3D printed it. They made the pick and some other goodies and sent it out to me. I know it's just when people do stuff like that, it's just like I want to cry. I'm just like you didn't have to do that.
The online community can be a wonderful haven of support and
Yeah.
camaraderie. It can also
Definitely.
be a shit show and a poisonous place to be. But I've discovered a new trick. If you just block all the dickheads, it all of a sudden becomes a really nice place again.
It's really great, right? I have this
There's a
one
lot
is
of them.
really
It takes
near
a
and dear
while.
to me. This you guys will know. Her name's Ariel Elizabeth.
Oh,
She
yeah.
sent out a postcard to me and wrote a note. This is like so I consider this like my first piece of fan mail. And
sweet.
it's just it just I mean that's why I'm showing that. It's because like despite all of the little, bickering, whatever that goes on, like honestly, the people that I interact with the most, you guys, the people in our chat, the people I see in the spaces, just some of the nicest people I've ever had the chance to meet, whether electronically or otherwise, just really good people. You're being that you've been through a really, really challenging couple of years, I feel like you have ended up in a good place with good people now, and that's really important.
Agreed.
It is, yeah.
Agreed.
So how about the aliens?
Yeah. Tell me about them aliens. You seen
Now,
that?
have you what type of experiences have you had? I'm curious, like
Well,
sightings or otherwise.
none that I would consider to be non-human life. I think.
Yeah, no,
But
have you seen
I'm
anything?
too scientific. I want proof and evidence all the way along. But I totally think that there have been lots of genuine experiences. I totally believe there is advanced technology that is being widely used by the US, Chinese, Russian, and North Korean, probably South Korean military, and that I totally believe a lot of the stuff Ashton's doing with, and which I love, with all the plasmoids and the free energy and the quantum science. I believe a lot of that has come from more of an understanding of, let's call it alien space vessels, propulsion technology, elements that are not on our sort of chart. And I totally believe that there is much more to it than we know. I totally believe all that.
I agree
But
with that.
those
It's
are
interesting. You mentioned
scientific.
North Korea too. It's the first time I've heard anybody mention North Korea in this conversation. That's really interesting. You think that it's possible that they have a couple things?
I study North Korea a lot more now because I made a discovery early on in the COVID years that linked up a lot of things happening in North Korea with part of a bigger, let's say, Four Eyes, Five Eyes, deep state. And I think because they are generally more quiet, because they don't obviously want to shout about what they are doing, that people forget about them, which they should not, because there is a huge amount of potential risk, threat, but also scientific accomplishment that has been made by that country that is not being realized. And the links obviously now more intrinsically with China and Russia, with North Korea, and the favorable relations on a geopolitical and an economic level are hugely significant. And we should listen very carefully to what Putin exactly said in that interview with Tucker Carlson, because there was a lot of clues in there that are worth following up.
Can
Interesting.
you give us some examples?
Putin openly said, and this relates to it, that he talked about supersonic speeds faster than light. He talked about biosciences and bioweapons, and the fact that we shouldn't really be too worried about nuclear war, because a nuclear war is almost prehistoric when there is so much more that is so much more advanced. I was listening to Thomas Bearden, I think it's Thomas Bearden, yesterday. Now he looks at the electromagnetic scale and the ability of electromagnetics almost to work in a way that we feverishly said, no, 5G can't possibly give you a virus. Well, you can vaccinate somebody with a smell. And people, I think it was yesterday on the broadcast, Tom, you said something like, I can taste with my sight, or I can smell with my ears.
The DMT experience I had, like synesthesia, I had experienced. I was hearing something that I should have been seeing, and that type of thing. You know, smelling colors and such.
All of it is possible. Don't rule any of it out, because at a subatomic level, and this is what I learned from studying Michael Levin when we're looking at the xenorobotics. And the single cell organism having a consciousness, which is a big thing I wanted to talk to Tom about, is consciousness, where it starts, bioelectricity, all that stuff I'm really into. It all comes together when we look at being able to transmit through electromagnetics, or more scalar quantum technology, which is the combination of gravity and magnetic forces and other forces that we take for granted, and using nothing more than water, hydrogen and oxygen, using nothing more than water, and using vacuum technology, pressurization, tubes, ball lightning, all that stuff. All of it is not only possible, I believe, and I found from many patents from companies consulted by DARPA, it's ongoing now, used by the military, and so much of the experiences that people have can well be stood up, reinforced by looking at the clear quantum physics explanations of how those things would have happened. Your sighting you had, Thomas, where you had these two big lights coming towards you that split those orbs on that
the red lights.
Yeah. Honestly, I looked back at a pilot from the 1910, I think it was, a pilot that had an experience when he was flying that was very similar, of equilateral triangles, in the same way you had the three drones around MH370 in an equilateral triangle sort of formation that were going around the airplane. That has gone through history. From 1880 was the first sighting of three equilateral lights, which could be orbs, vessels, or actually a living, life form propulsion.
1880.
Yeah, goes all the way back. But go and look
How do you explain that?
You haven't explained how we met, Tom, through the cable gate.
That is true too.
Yeah.
So we were in a space. I was with Astral. I believe it was his remote viewing space on like a Thursday, and she came in. And she dropped like a WikiLeaks link to us that had, if you just put in different keywords like UFO or unexplained, things, these keywords, you just had to kind of do your due diligence and your homework there. There were documents that were popping up from back in the day that I didn't even know existed. Some of them were wires between different countries and their ambassadors and such. And I mean, there's quite a bit there. God knows I don't have enough time to go look through all of it.
it was the first time I'd been on a stage in a space to do with UFOs. I'd never spoken in a UFO space, so I was terrified. And I almost put my hand up at the back and went, "Excuse me, I've just discovered that there's UFOs on Kissinger's personal memo. Is it something everybody knows, or are you interested?"
It was really a cool night. I was going crazy that night. I was like messaging with Astral and you back and forth. I'm like, "Did you guys see this one? Did you find this? Did you? Hey, if you put in this word," I mean, I was just like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "Who is this lady? She came out of nowhere. Like, what is this? What's going on?" We've been friends ever since.
This is mind-blowing stuff. Or do everybody in the UFO community already know this? Am I going to look stupid if I go up and say, "I've just found 10 emails between Kissinger and, Kachotsky in Russia talking about their actual experiences with UFOs"? Is this known or is this new? I didn't know. But I found a new tranche that had come out of WikiLeaks that had not really been publicized or noticed. And I spoke to Steve Bassett and the other guy. Anyway, I'd spoken to them and I'd said, "Oh, yeah, it was another tranche because WikiLeaks put out its emails first, then it put out its cables, and then Julian Assange obviously was, getting into trouble, going to prison. There was another tranche of information that came out that people didn't realize. The third tranche of WikiLeaks information was the UAP UFO information in a completely separate tranche. And basically, it's like a search engine almost. It's a link to all the cables that refer to UFOs, UAPs, and anything that's, non-Earth related. And we call it UAP Cablegate. Mello was doing shows with me about it.
Mello Demon, yeah.
Astonishing stuff in it. I mean, just
really
mind-blowing.
How have I missed the boat on all this?
This was
How did I miss the boat?
Months back. That was a while ago now. I'd have to trace it back, but yeah, this was
October,
just like
November,
a random
probably
Thursday.
before Christmas.
Yeah, I believe you're right. Yeah, I think I told you about it, Digby.
I can't remember.
I don't know. I mean, my God, we've talked about so many different things on so many different occasions. So consciousness,
talk to you every day. Yes, consciousness. I like this.
I've got a good question for you because this is what I'm working on right now for my next video. How do you feel about consciousness being non-local? Because that's what my video is about. Because I think it explains everything.
100%.
Like psi phenomenon. Yeah, so you agree?
I agree 100%. But I'm trying to remember whether it was. I don't know where I saw it. So I think it was a Michael Levin thing. It was an interview with Lex Friedman. So you have these little worms called plenaries, which have their brain in the center. Maybe the worm is about this big. They have the brain in the center, the head at the top, and then effectively, the tail part of it at the end. So a lot of experiments with plenaries where they've cut off the head and cut off the tail and watch the regeneration with the brain in the middle. And then they've cut it, and they've taken the brain out, removed the brain part of the plenary, and it's still regenerated the whole plenary again. And then they've done experiments that seem, this is not nice, with rats, where they chop away more and more of the brain matter, more and more of it, and the rat still continues doing everything in the same way, the same emotions, the same memories, and they chop more and more and more and more away until pretty much there's nothing there. The rat is the same. The rat is doing the same thing with the same consciousness, the same memory, the same emotions. Where is consciousness? It is not specifically located in the neural cells of the brain, the glial cells of the brain. That is pretty much the hypothesis that I am more and more believing in. I believe a lot of it is in the main organs. It's to do with the blood carrying the oxygen in the way that the bioelectricity is stimulated by cell membranes being crossed with a certain trigger. Normally something like a potassium trigger crossing a cell membrane will induce the bioelectricity, which then goes on to give the energy to the cells that start building stuff. Cells work in a common architecture. They can't work unilaterally. And so consciousness equally is not individual. It is a community architecture. The cells come together to build an eyeball or regenerate a leg or whatever it is. They know what the other cell's energy levels are. They know the team that has been assigned to go and build the eyeball have an aptitude to do that. They communicate. They know what they did yesterday. They can navigate a maze. They can self-replicate in 48 hours. and yet they are they are one cell, which is what we are all born from, one cell. But you chop out the brain part of a small worm or a frog or a tadpole in the embryonic stage, the transmatter stage from between tadpole and frog, and you take what should be the brain out, and it doesn't take it out. So don't think the brain is consciousness.
So
Because
there's also
I-
tests
yeah,
that
I
have
have
been
to
done
agree.
that link your heart. Actually, there's parts of your heart that control certain bits. Your gut as well. There's a
When
lot.
somebody has a heart transplant, Digby, somebody has the whole heart replaced with a pig heart. It doesn't change their consciousness or their feelings or emotions.
No, but it's just everywhere, isn't it? I think it's all part of us, you know. So
every cell.
yeah, I think we spoke about this when Tom did his DMT experience as well, and he you know left his body. He went to a DMT realm, and there he was seeing things in 360 degrees, right?
Yes.
And that to me says, well, obviously, because you're not there in a physical body, you're not looking with eyes. Therefore, you're just seeing everything all around, which actually, living in our three-dimensional world, is something very difficult to sort of imagine happening.
And it felt natural.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. You're seeing you know.
It was
seeing what you're seeing
all
through
around
two
me.
eyes.
We can't see the other dimensions. We are living in at least 4 dimensions. Time. Look at the eclipse yesterday. The eclipse took place at 8 o'clock here, 9 o'clock there, 10 o'clock there, 11 o'clock. That's time. When you drop the apple, it's 5 past, 10 past, 20 past as it's being dropped.
What I'm saying is, Tom obviously had the ability to experience something from a higher dimension that wasn't where his body was tethered to at that moment, which suggests to me that our consciousness actually isn't local. In fact, our physical bodies that we are in at the moment is tethered to a consciousness or a spirit or something that is outside of the realm that we are currently.
Changed the channel that I was watching in reality, right? Like, this is the distinction that I've been making, talking about this lately. Right, exactly. So it's like if you do mushrooms or LSD, like a lot of times, the things that you end up seeing are overlaid.
Maybe I need to do that.
Disclaimer: don't do this at home, kids. But this completely switched the channel that I was essentially tuned into. Instead of, having like a cartoon character pop out of my living room floor, it's like I have become the cartoon character and I'm in Looney Tuneville. Like, I mean, it is so remarkably.
Were you scared at the time that it? When you were out of
I'll
body,
tell
were
you.
Scared?
I'll tell you. This was the second time that I've done DMT, and the first time I didn't have the breakthrough where you experience the complete, dissolution of your ego. But that's what I was aiming to do this time. And there's a number of personal reasons why. And I did this under the care and supervision of a shaman that I'm friends with.
Oh, I thought you were going to do a disclaimer. I did it in a controlled circumstance when my mum.
Right.
With a shaman.
Yeah, they were not there for that. They don't.
Alan the shaman.
They know I did it though. So it was done in a ceremonial fashion, and this time I took an extra hit and experienced my identity essentially disappearing. And I came back immediately with a very specific thought about that. And I said, as a being that has only known life from an individual perspective ever since leaving the womb, the minute you're born, you are you. You're looking through your own eyes. You are an individual. How is it that I was able to experience the absolute opposite of that when I actually don't have any sort of foundational framework to even compare it to? Like, I can't go down the road to an arcade and play ego death, right? Like, this is just something like ego is ego. You can't just like separate yourself from it, like, unless you are, I don't know, like a monk or something that's figured out a way how to do that through meditation. But normally you can't just snap your fingers and make that type of experience happen. So how was it that I could do that and then also experience visually what it's like to see the world from, or just, experience perception essentially from a 360-degree experience? Like right now in my brain, I know it happened, but I can't I can't think back to what it even looked like. Like there were colors that I saw that I know that aren't normally a part of everyday life. I know I saw them, but I can't think back to it. It's because the brain, I believe, acts as a filter for consciousness, and when that filter is turned on, those types of things are filtered out, which is why I can't imagine them right now. But when
I
you're
think it's
under that,
possible. I do
right?
think it is scientifically possible and also credible. But the other thing is, I have this theory, and I think it was probably you that touched on it, Tom. I have this theory that you've got to go with me on this one.
Yeah, go ahead.
People who have been through trauma, people who have not had such a happy, settled life, people that have maybe had near-death experiences or who've been abused or have had horrendous decisions to make in life or witnessed horrible things that change. Because after all, I mean, it's brain chemicals, a lot of it at this stage, because we do know that when you're taking a chemical, whether it be DMT or cocaine or serotonin or Prozac or whatever it might be, it is going to change potentially the way that the communication structure of your cells, particularly in your brain, are working. So people who've had trauma, which increases adrenaline, cortisol, all these sort of things, there is a physical manifestation of it. The body-mind thing is 100%. You can't possibly disassociate body-mind. So people, I know a lot of people who are former military, PTSD. I had a very, very long relationship with somebody, 9 years, 2 Iraq tours, who saw small children exploding after helicopter blades ripped through them, and he had to pick up bits of children's limbs in crisp packets. And I know, people that have been through stuff like that, and obviously they totally change. No amount of therapy is going to do that, but they do have a capacity to reach certain levels that I believe they could not have reached before. I don't know if that makes sense, and hopefully doesn't
No, it
offend
does.
you.
It's powerful experiences in life.
Yeah.
Sometimes the negative ones end up down the road becoming tools for growth. I can use my life as an example. I am pretty open about this these days, but I was addicted to opiates. I had a problem for a little bit, and it didn't last like 10 years or anything like that. It was for a few years. And I now think about how I am as a person in totality, and how I'm definitely, I consider myself a spiritual agnostic. I don't have all the answers, but I have things that I lean towards, and then I have a couple things that I do firmly believe deep down. And I'm like, well, how would I be now? What kind of person would I be without those negative experiences essentially kicking my ass for those years? Like what would have been different? And I took those things and I now use them as a tool. I have a deeper appreciation for myself now. I actually, you know what I mean? Like before, I didn't, I didn't love myself at all, and I know that. And they say, oh, you can't love another person unless you love yourself. I personally don't. I don't adhere to that. What I think it actually is you're going to have a very difficult time truly loving other people if you don't love yourself. It's not possible, but it's not going to be quite the same thing. But now that I'm actually content with me being me, things are a lot different now. And I think that a lot of that came out of those negative experiences, but I've seen terrible things. I've had people overdose in my presence.
So here's a question.
Had a lot of friends pass away. No, go ahead, please.
Do you know anybody in the UFO UAP community that has had experiences that has not had some sort of trauma or some sort of imbalance or some sort of struggle? I don't.
That's interesting.
No, I mean, when I first saw my first UFO, it was probably 2 months after my parents broke up when I was 11 years old.
But Digby, I was worried about you. I'm not being funny, and I don't know how long this goes on, but I just got to ask you, Digby, because I was worried watching yesterday's broadcast after what happened to you. because
Yeah.
I know you're on your own, you're missing your family, and I saw the photographs of your skin and the melanin loss where the white, let's say, dots were. For people that are listening that probably didn't hear that, I'm not going to explain it because it's up to Digby whether he did, but
No, it's fine.
Digby had an experience, and a very physical experience potentially, which I think can be quite disturbing. And I felt for you when I heard that, Digby. I was quite worried.
It was.
And
It
the
was
minute you started playing tones and stuff, I was like, stop.
Well, that's when it started. So it was.
Don't play any of those things, please, because it really freaked me out a bit.
No. It was. I tell you what. The first day it was a bit weird because the morning I was sort of piecing it all back together, and it was
Right.
Yeah, it must have been a dream. And then the more I went through it, the more I realized that it wasn't. And then, I went to the beach for the day, and it was a hot day, 27, 28 degrees Celsius, obviously not Fahrenheit.
Yeah, it's pretty warm.
And so I caught the sun, and I went quite red. I don't normally go that red that quickly, which I thought was a bit strange because it was overcast. It wasn't particularly a blazing sunny day, and I was on a sunbed under an umbrella as well.
It's the light reflecting off the clouds.
Yeah, but the point is that I'm making is that it was because I caught the sun that day that it highlighted this loss of melanin in these patches of my skin.
I saw it.
Because my skin was red, so it was easier to see the white. Now my skin's sort of gone back down to being tanned. They're not as visible as they were.
Digby, just seriously, sorry. I know we had to make sure your children weren't watching when we discussed this. Well, I didn't. When you guys were discussing it, I don't want them to be watching now. And
no, they're fine. My wife's not watching. But yeah, it was a funny old experience, and I don't. It's not like I don't have an emotional disconnection to it. I just don't really know how to process it and how to deal with it. It was a funny one, and I think part of you still left wondering, did that really happen? So there's a bit of that. But the more I think of it,
I was a bit worried.
The more I think of it, the more I know that something absolutely did happen, and that it wasn't a dream state. It wasn't anything like that. It was an actual encounter. I was there. I was in this room. There were these beings in front of me, and as soon as I said that I was uncomfortable with this, I was promptly returned to where I was before. Or as somebody suggested, that actually might not be the case. It's just they put me back to sleep where I should have been in the first place.
I hope I got this right. You asked for it. You effectively invited it. Because my big question is, how are people chosen that have these types of experiences?
So, I mean, I've always wondered.
You went looking for it, didn't you?
In a way, I played these crop circle tones, and I stand by I've said this several times now. I don't think it was the crop circle tones that actually made anything happen. It was the simple fact by me taking the action mentally, taking the action to physically do something like that, triggered in my head that, yes, I give permission for this. Yes,
intention,
I want to have some
strong intention.
I set the strong intention by my actions. So it was my action that created the intent rather than the tones. So, had loads of people messaging me going, which tones did you use and everything like that. And I'll say, I don't believe it was the tones. I don't think the tones have got anything to do. It's all up here. And I invited it in that sense. I just wanted to see something in the sky, and didn't really want, some weird beings coming and plucking me out my bed at 2:00 in the morning and taking me God knows where. But
you said you might do it again, which to me is horrific.
I came back. I'm not, mentally scarred. I do want to know more answers, and the only way to get answers to something like that is to go through it. Really, I guess.
But have you ever heard Eric Mitchell speak?
Yes.
I haven't.
Times.
Okay,
He's
Digby,
an experiencer.
Tom, can you speak to Digby about what Eric Mitchell's circumstances? Because that's what I thought when Digby started talking to me, and I just thought, if it's anything like what Eric went through, no way.
I don't know his whole story, so I think you would actually be better off. Like the times that I've talked to him, we were just, broaching any number of subjects, but I've never actually sat and heard his whole personal situation. To be fair, I don't want to misconstrue anything and take guesses.
you want to listen to the space, Digby, because I don't want to relate it all. But Eric Mitchell, if you go to his profile, I mean, he's well known. He's very well known. In fact, you know, he moved houses with children to get away from what was happening, and his children were physically damaged in exactly the same way as you, Digby, but much more so and much more regularly. But unfortunately, there was a physical resemblance. When I saw your skin, that was what Eric Mitchell's children showed him when it started. So I want you to listen to what Eric Mitchell went through.
No, I will. I will have a listen. I think.
Do you think he'd be willing to come on the show?
Yeah.
He seems like he would. I mean, I've always had good interactions with him too. Just that when it's something like this, that's that personal, you know.
Didn't he come into the space that we were talking about it, Tom? When I set up the space after it happened, didn't Eric came in, didn't he?
He was in that space. He was in the space that you threw together. You know, Digby, I actually have a question for you that I'm curious about.
Go for it. I mean, we didn't really unpack this whole thing with me.
No, so but I'm
so I'm happy to go through it. Yeah, go for it.
Because we do what we do, and we have this show, and these are the subjects that we talk about. It reminds me of when I went through all the things that I did, you know, when I was a kid, when I had the encounter with the triangle. Here I am as someone who already has this deep-rooted interest in this subject, and then I have the experience, and the first thing I think of is, no one's going to believe me. How am I supposed to tell anybody about this? I'm already someone who already has a bunch of books about UFOs, and I'm someone who has all these videotapes and magazines and all of that. And now here you are as an adult, someone who's just on a podcast talking about these subjects on a weekly basis with me, and then you have that experience. Did that cross your mind? Like, how the hell am I going to get this across to people?
No, I didn't think of it in that sense at all. Actually, I took the morning thinking about whether I was going to broach the subject, and how to sort of start it. And I mean, I'll be completely honest with you. What I did is because I was trying to write it down into a coherent sentence. And at the time, I couldn't. My brain just wasn't working very well. I was struggling to process it. I remembered bits of information. I remember the timeline in which it happened. I got my phone out and I turned on ChatGPT and I put the dictation on to it and I started dictating to ChatGPT what happened, what I experienced, and what I saw. And I just said, can you put this into a post for me? I couldn't even write the post. I was just like, my brain was fried. I was just like, I need to get the information out. So the post I put on X, I had to get ChatGPT to put it all in order for me because I was still just trying to process it all.
I'm glad you didn't experience it from that perspective because it can be very isolating and frustrating.
Yeah, I love AI and the fact that it actually has the ability to, if you use it in the right way, it's got a good ability to help us rather than, I don't believe in people using AI for things just to like pass things off as something else or,
right. It's like, I don't know how to put this into the right words.
This was like, this happened.
Yeah, sometimes like that's how I sort of use it too. Like if I'm creating a YouTube video and I'm like looking at something I typed up for my narration, sometimes I'm like, I feel like this section here needs a little bit more impact.
Yeah.
So I'll go in and be like, hey, can you rephrase this to make this
a
little bit more interesting?
For me, it was more like it was my words. I kept told it to keep basically my words, just sort of make more sense because I wasn't really making sense.
No, I can understand that. I can appreciate that. Definitely.
But, I think the more. The funny thing is, I haven't actually thought about it for a couple of days. I thought about it a lot when it happened, obviously, and a few days afterwards. But I know what I saw. I know what it was. I know that I wasn't dreaming. I know that it wasn't a lucid dream. I know that I was completely aware of myself and my surroundings and had complete control over my actions to a certain extent. but yeah, it was a freaky ass experience, and you know, I haven't done it again. I haven't played the Crop Circle song tones again. Not that I think that that's what did it anyway. You know, I haven't set that intention out there to do it again. I don't think I need to. I don't really recall anybody ever saying I was abducted once. I think it's probably something that one way or another I'll have an experience with again. I also think
that's likely.
actually it's probably likely that this isn't even my first experience. I mean, if we really go back, you know, from the point of being 11 years old, my whole life before the point of 11 years old, I can't really remember. I remember snippets of memories from before the age of 11, but I don't remember them like they were my own. It's almost like remembering watching something on TV. And my first UFO sighting was when I was 11, when I did regression. She couldn't really take me back prior to the age of 11. So, you know, something happened to me when I was younger, certainly.
Are you saying that that did happen, or that you suspect it happened?
Sorry, which part? That something happened to me
when you were younger.
No, I suspect it does, because as I was saying, you know, my memory from before the age of 11 is just pretty much non-existent. What I do remember, it's almost like remembering watching something on TV rather than I remember what I did last week, kind of thing. I hear people talking about their childhood and stuff like that, and I was just like, I don't remember it. I don't remember it. I don't remember. I remember what my school looked like. Yeah, I'm the youngest of 6.
It's quite a big family.
It's none of us talk to each other.
Well, you know, and that sucks, because it's like, I wonder if they've had some experiences of a similar nature.
I wouldn't even speak to them.
You know, so you don't talk to any of your siblings?
No.
It's a shame.
No. Well, actually, I don't think it is, because I'm just.
Yeah,
you know what?
it's none of my business. I don't mean to
slag them off, but I am a very different person to them, and I couldn't have them come around to my way of thinking if I tried for 100 years. You know, it's just not in them, and that's fine. You know, they go off and live their life, and you know, I'm the black sheep of the family who ran off to Morocco with my wife and my kids, and you know, and just
you're
living
a
my life
successful person in
I'm
my eyes.
free.
You've owned pubs. You know what I mean? Like the way that I look at the things that I know.
Yeah, I know. I've owned them and then lost them. You know, I've been that successful.
But no. That is success to me, because you had to bust your ass just to be in the position to begin with. You know, and
I've been lucky enough to have moments of greatness thrust upon me throughout my time on this earth, I think. But I think it's just because I'm the type of person that will see an opportunity and I will jump on it. And I'll go, well, what's the point in doing, you know, what's the point in not trying? You know, which is sort of my mantra for everything in life. It's like, I'll give it a shot, I'll give it a go.
Blue collar individual. I get up, I go and do the heavy lifting at work, and then I come home and put on my intellectual artsy fartsy hat. You know?
Yeah, I've always been too stubborn to do that.
I'm like this weird combination of a hippie and a metalhead. What's that?
Guns. You got guns. You can show us from this heavy lifting.
That's not.
No,
I'm not a bodybuilder. Do you know what delivering furniture actually did do? It seems to have widened like my shoulder width. Interestingly. Yeah, like I became much like this, like up here I'm like more broad, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like I noticed it one day in the mirror. I'm like, what the hell is this? Why am I so wide? like it's really odd. I actually just recently though I started a new diet, which is Digby knows about that, which has really been helping me for energy and things of that sort. And I've started lifting weights a couple times a week. So I'm just trying to get back into like not the shape that I was in before, but even better. Because I was a basketball player, like I was an athlete growing up, and then I became a musician, and that became my focus. So some of those things went to the wayside.
I was a dancer. I was a professional dancer for 6, 7 years.
That takes athleticism. There is no question about that. Did you do any ballet?
Well, I did
No
do some
pole.
ballet as part of the training, but I
And my
used
mom
to
did
train
ballet.
4 nights a week, and every weekend I was competing as dancing for the British team when I was 13, 14 years old. It was my
Wow.
life. It was everything. But
That's my
something
hidden
traumatic
talent, by
happened,
the
as
way.
it does in my life. My life is a bloody soap opera, and yours sounds not dissimilar. And I just wonder what Digby said as well is a sense of isolation. Maybe something that people share that have an interest in the phenomena and in other things, that people say sometimes it's not advantageous to spend much time on your own because you think too deeply.
Sometimes.
But if you don't think in a completely selfish and inner way, and you use that time to think in an outer way and to open your mind up to other things, and sometimes it takes a near-death experience or a trauma or something to allow people to do that, then it may be that actually in some ways a splendid isolation, as they call it, and you only have to look at the genius of Nikola Tesla or Einstein, or most of the famous particular scientists, but even painters, musicians. They were very sole individuals. They spent a lot of time on their own, a lot of the time, because if they were advanced intellectually, normally, obviously, but creatively, or they had something that was, not under a normal distribution curve, that they would find it difficult socially to interact with people. And therefore, if your interaction socially is a bit of a struggle and you don't feel that you're accepted or that people are on your wavelength, you tend to look externally for that. You look elsewhere for it. And I find that in a lot of the geniuses that I look towards, that I aspire towards, like Tesla, obviously, that there is that common current that runs through them of that splendid isolation.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. And yeah, Sandy, I have to definitely comment on that really quick. Yeah, that is my hidden talent. I am actually really, really good at pop locking.
What is that?
Yeah. So like
That must be an American thing.
No.
It?
Like the whole like.
No, I used to do
that's
that.
what I was. That's what I was doing. What do you mean? Yeah.
That type of thing. Like no, but
I
like I can moonwalk and like all the glides and stuff. Yeah.
Moonwalk. When I was a kid,
like I can go in a circle to the side, forward, backward. I can airwalk. I can stand on my toes. I can do all types of stuff. All the Michael Jackson stuff, basically.
Here's one of the memories I can remember from my childhood is I used to love Michael Jackson, and I used to do little Michael Jackson dances and put little white plasters on the end of my fingers.
You do Thriller?
Yeah.
It's such a good song. Such a good song. But yeah, seriously, I got really into that specifically because when I was in 6th grade, I'll never forget it. The last day of 6th grade, my buddy Evan, who does watch our podcast, so shout out to Evan. He's a bass player, great musician. I went to high school with him too. I miss Evan. I haven't seen him in years, but such a nice guy. His dad was at the school that day. I forget why. It was like the last day. I don't know if it was like bring your parent to school day, whatever it was. It was in 6th grade, and his dad. We were standing there, me and Evan, and we were trying to figure out how to do the moonwalk. And we're just, completely doing it wrong. And Evan's dad walks up and he's just like, he's cool as hell. And he comes up and he's like, no. He's like, let me show you how to do it. And then he does it. And I'm just like, because I had never seen anyone do it in person before. So like the first time you see that, I was just like, I'm like, oh my God. Like, what did you just do? And then he explained it. And I'm like, that's it. I'm like, it's just toe slide. I'm like, that's it. Wow. Yeah, I love that type of stuff, man. It's really cool.
I briefly dated a surgeon when I was younger, and I left him because he was too dull. He was so dull. He was very brainy, but he was dull. And God, he was such a nerd. But out of the blue, some friends were around one night and whatever. He suddenly jumped up and did the woo on the floor, and I was like,
that's great. That's why I leave it in my back pocket. I don't tell people about it. And then, like, every now and then, like at work, one day, one of my coworkers, Michael Jackson, came on, and he tried doing the moonwalk, and he's just blowing it. He's just walking backwards, and I just looked at him and did the motion, the thing, and just started doing it. And he was like, "Oh my God!" He's like, "What?" It's in parties. It's great.
Secret weapon.
Great.
Secret weapon.
It's a good icebreaker.
Dance off.
Yeah.
Arsenal.
It's a good
Everyone's
icebreaker.
gonna have a party piece, haven't they? What's your party piece? What's your thing that you're hiding from us? Are you a spoon player, Digby, or something? You know,
I can
He's a
dance.
master of the
and
electric triangle.
I can lie straight. I can basically lie straight on my back with my legs either side like this, and then bring myself up to a full stand.
I can't do that.
we need
But
bigger cameras.
last-
we need
last-
full length.
Last time I tried to do it, my knees didn't work very well for a couple of days afterwards. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. But I can also too moonwalk. Yes.
I wish I lived in the States. What we need is, and it's possible because we just change matter, going to transmatter, is like a starship transporter that I can pop in and I can be there with both of you. And we go out tonight, we get wrecked and start dancing.
Get wrecked.
I could really do with going out on the piss. Right
That's how
now.
I say it too. I
You've
love that.
No idea how much I could go out on the piss
Get
right now.
obliterated. I love
Yeah,
that.
few
That she says
shots,
get
few
wrecked.
shots.
Think
We'll
if
go
you
out
got
and do
wine.
the.
Few baby
Oh, man.
Guinnesses, a couple of bottles of white wine. Yes,
I'm pretty
absolutely.
I'm pretty lively when I'm drunk. I don't drink anymore, but I am lively. There is no question about that. I'm not an angry drunk. Hey, I wanted to ask you because I saw
Hang
Hang
the
on, is your wine called Quirky Bird?
Quirky
Yeah.
Bird.
That's what you are.
Oh, that is fitting. What kind of wine is it?
It's a Sauvignon Blanc, sir.
Is it a Chilean
Very nice.
Sauvignon Blanc?
It's a nice 13%.
Mm,
But you know
lovely.
what? I have no taste and no smell, and I still drink it.
Well, then you may as well be drinking Pinot.
It would-
But you still know what it is, though. You know, it's like you still get that, like, there's a
I
sensation. that
occasionally
goes
get
on.
Yeah,
some
she gets
taste back.
pissed.
Occasionally, I get taste back. The first time I got taste back was mid 2022, 23, 22, I think it was. And I went out, I shot out. I bought Haribo, olives, Marmite, and peanut butter, and I ate all of them together.
Oh.
What the hell?
I've had no
Now-
taste or smell for 3 or 4 years.
So, like, watch this. Look what I can do.
For those of you who are American and don't know what Marmite is, it's fucking
Oh, yeah.
disgusting.
It's disgusting. I know what it is.
Right.
That's nasty.
It's yeast extract, and it's ugh.
That is who likes that, man? Like, who's gonna
Well, if
eat
you've
that?
got no taste, you need something sharp. So
Right. No, that makes sense. Yeah, Marmite's gross, man. I actually only figured out what that was like pretty recently. It was like within like the last year. My like it was in a movie, and my mom talked about it and said she's
Yeah.
like, "Ugh, that's
some
gross."
British people travel with it. I mean, I used to go to St. Lucia loads. In fact, 30 times. That it's my where I feel I should live. You know, the separation
Right.
of body and mind. That you're only in the body you're in, but you are actually out of it, as we know from out of body experiences. And you can be in a second place that you're not here. Some people say you're restless and unhappy in life because you're not in the place, the location where your consciousness wants to be or should be. But
That sounds
I
about
had
right.
that. I do believe that. When I'm in St. Lucia, I honestly feel at home. I feel I should be there. I feel none of the same concerns in the way I do in the UK. It's kind of weird. I feel comfortable. I feel rested. I just feel right being there for some reason. And I, just through the years, felt a yearning to be next to water as well, which I know a lot of people do. Which is
That's
why
how I
it's
feel. I like
freaking
the
out.
beach.
You know
Who is
why
it?
that is? It's because water talks to water, and you're 2/3
Well, you're
water.
80% water, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's got to be
Yeah,
something
exactly. But
related
water
to
has
that.
the ability to literally connect and talk to other water. So being near massive bodies of water is actually incredibly good for us.
Oh, I love going to the beach. I remember Digby when we started like this show. I had just come back from vacation in Wildwood, New Jersey. We're going again this year in August, and I feel like I'm not a morning person really, right?
Don't make us
But
jealous.
No, I know.
when I'm there, I'm able to get up and watch the sunrise.
If
like
I leave the house
it's so
now,
different.
if I leave the house, if I go to Sainsbury's, a supermarket, or the garage, that's excitement in my life.
That's crazy. So
No.
no
I mean,
wonder
you don't
you're
even have a
always so like
Waitrose.
you're
Sainsbury's.
always so energetic in Twitter Spaces. It's like so that must be like a freaking like a cocktail party for you,
I've
right?
got
Like it's like
oxygen in the house, and I've got things to make me feel better. And I
Right.
have managed to take my dogs to the park in the last 12 months a couple of times, where I haven't got really, ill and uncomfortable. But it's just become a whole frustrating way of existence, not having left this house more than, I don't know, 20 times in 4 years.
That's
And when I do leave
wild.
it, it's only for convenience or hospitals or doctors or whatever.
Mm.
How many times have you left your house since like January? You think?
4 or 5.
Jesus.
Oh my god.
And here I am moaning about being on my own for 3 weeks.
Yeah, really. And I have to leave my house 5 days a week for my job. I'd come back. Wow. Oh my god. You know what? I gotta say, because I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels this way. This particular episode of the show has been a really interesting change of pace, because this has been more of like a personal conversation as opposed to us focusing on necessarily like the UFO topic and conscious, like it's all been mixed in, but I feel like this has been kind of like a little bit of like a breath of fresh air. It's different. But I like it. It's in a good way.
I
Like
do. I feel a
I
bit
hope
of
you guys in
a
the
group
chat
hug.
are enjoying it. Yeah, it
It's,
feels like a deep personal conversation, which is nice. I
It
like
is, and
it.
it's nice to broaden the horizons, because the world doesn't revolve around UFO Twitter and aliens and stuff. And and I said to Tom not so long ago, I wanted to venture out on the show a bit more anyway, because there's other subjects to talk about, and which we've discussed some of those with you today. But because I think that actually a lot of people go down the same rabbit holes, they start looking into other things. When you realize you're being lied to about one thing, let's face it, you start thinking, what else am I being lied to about?
Yeah.
But it's also nice to have real conversations with real people that have real feelings and real emotion, and to connect with people, because that's what we're here on this earth to do, is to connect with people. And it makes, as Tom said, it's a nice breath of fresh air, nice change of pace.
I kind of expected it.
I knew
I
it was going
expected
to
it.
be like this. Absolutely. That's why we didn't. Nick said to me yesterday, "Oh, what are we going to specifically talk about?" I was like, "There is no specifics. We'll just
Yeah,
talk."
yeah, we're just gonna go. I like that.
Kind of always going to be that sort of idea.
I'm just one of these people. I always like to do my homework. I was always a very studious student. I was always very academic. I was bullied like shit because I was bright, but I always do my homework now in everything. And when I've done other interviews with other podcasters and stuff, they've been more specific. So I've done, quantum this or biology that or this, that, and the other. And I study for them. So that's what I was asking you, Digby. I was like, well, is there a particular
I just
area?
wanted a sort of a broader conversation, really. And I think
I'm
because
so
it's
glad
important.
you did. I'm so glad you did. And I almost feel like I've had a therapy session.
So
I take that as a strong compliment.
Yeah,
And honestly, genuinely, thank you for sharing some of the more personal things about your life with us, because knowing that now, I feel like I can connect with you differently and better, knowing what you've dealt with and such. That helps create some more connections, right? Like, and you're so funny, damn it! Like, you somehow turned some of this into serious humor. Like, we went from like I haven't left my house to I now can lip sync on TikTok.
What's she doing?
I got to show you my best buddy.
Puppy. Oh, puppy. What's your dog's name?
This is Lando. He's named after Lando Norris, who's the Formula One motor racer.
Oh, you say Lando Calrissian from Star Wars. Where's Jet? You know what? I'm gonna go get Jet.
Where's the other one? Maybe.
I always talk about making an appearance with him, and I still haven't done it. Let me go grab him real quick.
One of the only Springer Spaniels in Morocco, this.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I drove them all the way here from England.
Spaniels
he's wet at the moment. We've got a very weird cat here. So we rescued a cat off the street when we got here. It was a kitten. It must have been about 4 or 5 weeks old. And the cat has taken to trying to feed from my male Springer Spaniel, which is quite disturbing to say the least. So it's like they're going. like that, trying to feed off the dog, and I'm like, this is a bit weird.
They are my world. When you're locked down, you've got nobody to talk to. You have great conversations with dogs.
Yes, I know. I haven't talked to you that much this week, have I? No. My dogs are actually just bored of me and going, when's Mummy and the kids coming back? Oh, here we go.
Oh, I knew you had one.
You guys, because
did you just go and grab that off your neighbour? That doesn't belong to you, does it? You just stole it off the street.
Just nicked it from some kid outside.
He has no idea what's going on, though. He's like, why did you pick me up? Who did that? Who's that?
I also like people that like animals. I think there's something to be said for people that like animals and have dogs particularly. I think there's a certain kind of person.
Yeah, no, it does take. Are you licking my toes? Oh, sorry, I've invited a whole world of trouble over here now, and all my dogs are now staring at me, looking at me, going, "Daddy, what's going on?" Oh, there you go. Oh, now I've got to put this back.
Anyway, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it.
Me too. Thank you so much, everybody.
Great conversation.
I would like to talk more about consciousness, Tom, if you do that.
Yes,
even on
absolutely.
a quite sciencey level. All the Michael Levin stuff. I'm sure you've seen some of it, and it's posted on
absolutely.
Yeah,
when my new video is done, I'll make sure I'll DM it to you.
Super.
You guys should do a special edition show where you just talk about consciousness.
Yeah,
that sounds
definitely.
like a good idea.
I'd love to do that.
It's so fascinating.
Well, look, thank you to everybody who's watched us live today. 443 people watching us live right now.
Yes.
Everybody.
Please subscribe on YouTube.
Yes, please do.
Please.
If you are watching on X, which about 300 of you are, 337, about 400 people are watching on X. Please,
really great.
if you head over to our YouTube channel and like and subscribe, just search at UA-pod. On YouTube, it really does help us with the bastards at YouTube who keep messing with our algorithm and making it so nobody searches for it.
Subscribers, nobody follows me.
And also, could you find Moneypenny on YouTube as well? And you are Moneypenny Media on YouTube, is that correct?
Yeah.
So search Moneypenny Media on YouTube to see all of Moneypenny's weird and wonderful
and my lip syncing and my funny stuff.
Yeah, I gotta see that. Sandy said she said she wore it because Tom always wears a hat, so I've decided to remove my hat to prove that I do have a head underneath it.
Yes, and what a head.
You still got a lovely head of hair, whereas I
lost a lot of hair.
I lost a bunch right here and whatnot, so I was like, yeah. I used to have really long hair.
Yeah.
My hair was almost as long as yours, actually. At its longest, I had my hair probably down to here. Yeah, yours. No, seriously, I had
Digby's got long nasal hair. I can see up your nose, Digby.
Oh, this was a fun one. Since I'm not using the green screen in OBS, I can't do what I did last time. I was moving myself around the screen, and as we left, I made myself disappear under the horizon.
Oh, I thought you were doing that with your chair.
No, I actually literally just clicked and did it. Oh, you thought I really did?
Bye-bye, everybody.
Yeah, no, that was a click and drag.
Oh, funny.
I'll say goodbye from the quirky bird.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, and I hope we get to do this again sometime soon. Obviously, we'll definitely see you in a Twitter space sometime soon, or X. And to everybody in the chat, we love you very much. Thank you for being here with us. We deeply appreciate it.
So from me and from him and from her, thank you very much, everybody.
Good
Take
night.
care, and we will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.